Alright, good evening all. I hope everyone's good out there. Welcome to my COVID-19 Q&A's number 6. Slight change of location tonight. I'm in the library, not a library at all, there's just some books behind me on a shelf. So I hope everyone's good out there anyways, and everyone's staying well and keeping to their lock-up rules and regulations. Can't really make head nor tail out of Boris's latest speech. Whether we're supposed to be allowed to go fishing on Wednesday or not, I don't know. I'll wait until my lake's open and make a decision then. I may well be fishing Wednesday, who knows, don't care. Right, I'm going to start off by giving you the warnings. Obviously I swear a lot, so please, if you don't like that, feel free to turn off now. Secondly, obviously I have been known to touch on the odds iffy subject, so if you're susceptible to emotional outbursts when someone starts speaking their mind, feel free to turn off again. Other than that, just be aware, I do touch on some subjects that others might not discuss. That's not to say that I'm unemotional about such things. I often am, and that's usually what gets me talking about them. So feel free to turn off if you do get emotional. I won't get upset about it. Right, let's dive straight into the good ones. Who's a better angler? This is from Chris J Hinde. Who is the better angler? You, Fordham, or Jim Shelley? That's not exactly how he wrote it. There was a few stray words there in between Jim and Shelley. I'm quite upset about you, Chris. Just a point, I think I've got loads of questions from you tonight. Are you trying to take over Steve Burrell's job? Come on, mate. You'll be looking for lessons off of Jim Shelley. Maybe you and Stephen could book up a double session, right, with him, double end him, so to speak. You know what I mean. Right, so who's the better angler? First off, how do you quantify a better angler? I've got no idea how you do it. Alright, let's go through the options. Is it because someone catches the most fish? That'll be Jim Shelley. Shelley catches a lot more fish than me. What would he do? I don't really fish many places that he'd ever fish. So yeah, that's a given really. Plus he nets them out of ditches and things like that. So how many of them are actual captures and how much of them just putting out a big old net and scooping them up, I don't know. People have their opinions on the fella. I can't stand him. I prefer to be an angler rather than a fisherman, to be honest. He's a fisherman, I'm an angler. He's got no etiquette, he's got no style, he's got no, I don't think he's got any angling ability, to be honest. Yeah, he catches fish, whoopee-doo, so do we all. I think an angler really, to me, an angler is someone that fishes with etiquette, cares for the environment, cares for the surroundings, cares for the fish he catches, doesn't go untoward with his angling techniques, so certainly doesn't brick in 40-pound plus fish into a little stocking into a little spawning area, so it's easier to catch. Doesn't catch big fish out of ditches. Doesn't move fish, steal fish out of water so that you can get a good name with another club and actually get a ticket. Yeah, that sort of person I don't think is an angler, to be honest. So who's the better angler? Using those terms, it's got to be between me and Ian. Give Ian his credit, he does a lot more thinking about rigs and things like that than I do. Different generation, mate. yeah, different generation. We grew up in different times. I done all the rig work I wanted to do in the 80s. I'm not interested in rigs anymore. I've got a good mind for rigs. I can see a rig for what it is. Ian's not there with that yet. But that's, as I say, I've been doing it 40 years. I think Ian's been doing it something like 25, 30 years. But you know, it's just different eras. Ian will be the first one to say that he doesn't really get baits. He doesn't go into detail with baits. He pretty much relies on me not to steer him a bum one. You know, when we go on a water together, we tend to fish the same baits. It'd be stupid not to. So we end up fishing the same baits anyways. But well, understanding of what you're doing. Put it this way, I certainly agree. Ian puts in probably a bit more effort than me. I'll be the first to admit I'm a lazy angler. That's not to say I'm less willing to move or anything like that. I'll just get a gut feeling and I'll be gone. Ian will want a little bit more, something a bit more concrete to go on. I don't want that, and I don't need it. I'll be gone. I'll be moving to another part of the lake or whatever. But my actual fishing style is quite lazy. Difficult to explain really, because I am a very active angler. But I suppose my mindset is I'm a lazy angler because I sit there and I don't think about rigs. I don't worry about baits. Sit there just thinking about location. I've said it before. It's the only thing I worry about. So where Ian's tinkering away and fiddling and trying out a new rig and adjusting this and adjusting that, I'll be sitting there smoking fags and drinking tea. Lazy fishing, but at the same time, it's how I do it. I rely on what I've learned over the years to put me in good stead. I'd rather have a good rig out there all the time than have 20% of the time with a shit rig out there that's not suitable, if you know what I mean. Okay, there's another 20% of the time that you're going to fish a brilliant rig. I'd still rather have the decent rig out there. Simply because I know it covers me for 100% of the time, whereas, you know, fiddling about with rigs, you end up limiting your chances, if you like. Okay, when you've got the best rig for the job out there, yeah, that improves your chances, but only for a short while it's the perfect rig. So yeah, I'm a kind of a lazy angler. I think me and Ian work well as a team, to be honest. I don't think either of us are particularly the better angler than another. If I had to say who was a better angler, I'd say Ian is. Ian can adapt to different species. I can't be bothered. I'm too lazy an angler to actually do it. So yeah, Ian will go out. He'll go chub fishing. He'll go roach fishing. He'll go tench fishing with a float. He'll do all that sort of thing. So as a general all-round angler, I would say Ian, 100%. I hope that answers your question. It's not much of one, not much of an answer, I'm afraid, but I would say Ian is the better angler out of me and Ian. And I think Jim Shelley falls by the wayside because he's not an angler. He's just a bloke that turns up at a lake with a big net. Yeah, sorry, Chris. It's as good as I can get. Oh, I got one here from Jack Jacklin. I've got two here from Jack Jacklin actually, but I'm sort of going to merge them together a little bit. What's your thoughts on uncaught fish, e.g. the big common in the mere? I fished a bit for 10 years, a pit for 10 years that had a fish in it that was never banked, and I feel that's quite common. I've read that they don't eat bait, but I've seen this fish eat bait and even fed it some. So does it just get away with it? Does it feed differently? What's your thoughts? As I say, he's got a second question. Over the last few years, I've gone to bed dreaming about St Aloes carp and memories of 3 fish I've seen in the river and a pit I saw in 2002, which was a 60 pounder for sure. What do you drift off to? Okay, I'm going to merge these two together really, because uncaught fish and what I drift off to are pretty much the same difference. I do a lot of thinking about fish that haven't been caught either before or ever, sort of thing, you know, or recently. So where I differ from a lot of anglers, I think, excluding Ian, is I like to chase unknown fish on unknown pits and do my best to catch them. So yeah, that's something I go to sleep to every single night. There's certain things about me that are lazy in my angling, but the passion is still burning very, very strongly. How about what are my thoughts on uncaught fish in normal fishing situations, ones that are fished for 365 days a year but never come out, i.e. the mere carp. I fished when I fished long life, I was going to spend about 3 years on there. That was my mental target, sort of thing. Spend about 3 years on there, see how it went, and you know. In the first year on there, when I just on the same day I caught my first carp, which was a 31, I think it was. Can't remember. No, it wasn't a 31. It was 28, 27 it was. But on the same day I caught that fish was swimming around with another fish. I fished that water for 7 years, long life, and the only reason I continued that long was because of one fish, and that was that one fish, the very first carp I saw in that lake. That was in 90, 92, 93, somewhere around there. Now that fish I saw was a new UK record, without a doubt. I didn't have any doubts about that on the day. Having fished the cons up until that point and other waters, I'd seen 50s in the water and on the bank. So I knew what a 50 looked like. I know how heavy a 50 was as well, because I'd caught a couple out of France. But at the same time, this fish wasn't a 50, it was bigger. Yeah, so to put that into context, I seem to remember, it's a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure I remember that Terry Hearn with Mary was the British record at the time, 56 pounds. Now, I'd seen carp in the water, sort of wandering the cons, up to 52 at the time. I'd seen 2 different carp in there, a 51 and a 52. Both have been caught, both have been confirmed that they were both 50s, and I knew them fish relatively well. But I moved on to the cons, off the cons and on to long life for a new challenge. So I'd already caught those 50s at smaller weights. I'd already caught carp out of France at bigger weights. But I was quite used to seeing a 50 by then. Now, when I saw this fish, I I was 100% sure that in 7 years that I'd spent on there, I should have had it. I may have hooked it once. I had a run like I've never had before, and I doubt I'll ever have again. But in that time, the fish had never ever come out. Did it feed differently? On that first day, I witnessed a fish that was so interested in food, but at the same time was so cautious. I couldn't believe how cautious it was. I stalked that 60-pounder for, I seem to remember it was 2 3/4 hours, and it noticed my bait within about 30 seconds of the bait hitting the water. All I was doing, I was float fishing sweet corn about 8 inches under the surface, maybe 10 inches under the surface, and it knew it was there. It swirled it many times, but after 2.5 hours or so of stalking it, whatever it was, 2.5, 2 3/4 hours, when it finally made the decision it was going to eat it, the carp that had been swimming along behind it by about 1.5 metres, 2 metres, that had not paid the single slightest bit of attention to that bait, shot in, snaffled my bait, and I hooked up with the first carp of my long lifetime. Like I say, that was, I think, 27 something, 27.5, somewhere around there. I was fuming, absolutely fuming with that fish, absolutely gutted, because I'd watched that carp, the big one, swirl my bait every time it went past, carried on over to some snags, through the snags, down a little bay, went along the little bay, into the corner, into a little weed bed and some snags down there, and it'd come out and go to within about 3 foot of me again, swirl my bait and do the same thing. And it had done that for, as I say, 2.5, 2 3/4 hours. Yeah. The last time it came past, it swirled my bait, went about a yard, stopped. At that point I thought, I've got to pick up my rod. I've got to pick up my rod now, it's having it. It turned on 6pence, started heading back towards my bait, and I just knew that was going to go. From out the corner of my eye, in come this mirror, just grabbed it. That was it. I was doing my tits at it. So, in answer to your question, are there these mystery fish out there? Absolutely, 100%. I know for a fact that that fish still hasn't come out of long life. Probably dead now, especially after the stocking the cons gave it. So I think they are, should I say, a fish that does feed on bait. It does feed on bait extremely cautiously. I think most of the time it spends its life not eating bait. I think they're a big naturals feeders. But I also think that when they are cautious about bait, they are extremely cautious about it. And the chances are there's going to be another fish close by that's watching that cautious feeding, and when the other fish is 100% sure that the big ones or these uncaught fish are 100% sure that a bait is safe, they shoot in and snaffle it. That's my thinking on it. They do feed differently, I'm sure of that as well, simply because of the caution. But at the same time, it's something very difficult to define. You've got cautious carp and you've got an extremely cautious carp. I just think they are on extremely cautious to the nth degree, if you like. So yeah, I do think they exist. I do think they get away with it. I think they spend a huge amount of time eating naturals, but when they do eat baits, they're just extremely cautious, and they rely almost on their mate, the idiot, come flying in and nicking the bait off of them before they get a chance to eat it. I think that a lot of carp we catch are actually, if you like, big carp's first line of defence. So obviously Mary's mate and Mary used to get caught regularly in the same vicinity at the same time. Goes to say that maybe Mary's mate used to be its defence line, but Mary's mate got a bit too stupid and wasn't paying attention to Mary maybe enough. I don't know, but yeah, it's definitely strange things that go on under the water that we don't know about, and possibly these carps, buddies, whatever you call them, mates, are the ones that get caught more often simply because they dive in at the last minute and nick it out their mouth, virtually. So yeah, Jack, that's my thoughts on it anyways. I hope that helps at all. Yeah, so I've seen enough of these carp over the years that don't seem to get caught. We had one on the sandpit that just, he had it pretty much sort of blocked in with bait, you know, and it just not interested at all, mate. So yeah, they're out there, definitely. It's just how to catch them, that's the question. Could go on to naturals, maggots, casters, things like that. But you're opening up a whole world of issues from bream, tench, roach, God knows what else. So yeah, where'd you go really? It's a hard thing because we fish boilies simply because they cut out 90% of the other species, simply because we would rather spend our time, if you like, focusing purely on carp. Maybe that's our problem. Maybe we shouldn't be thinking like that. Maybe we should be catching roach, bream, tench, carp all mixed in together, and maybe we'd start nailing these huge fish that are in waters that we hadn't considered before. Who knows? Alright, Jack, thank you very much for those questions. Hope the answers helped you at all. Going to go back again to Chris J Hinde, the one that's trying to steal Steve's job. He's got two more questions here. I reckon I can fit in. I'll do the first one, see how we get on with the second one. Whether it's a Daiwa windcast reel that I use or a set of Bassiers, what makes them worth 10 times as much? My reels cost 100 quid and never let me down. They're balanced, well made, and take anything the weather has to throw at them, along with exceptional line lay. How the hell can a reel be that much better, yet cost a small fortune, Same argument for Shimano fans too. Right, well, I am a Shimano fan. In all honesty, mate, your reels cost you 100 quid. They've got Daiwa stamped on the side. They weren't worth the money. Just get yourself a meat grinder instead. Just churn that to get your line in. Okay, mate. Right. What makes one reel more expensive, or so much more expensive? You're right. Yeah, Shimano do sort of 50 quid reel, or you can go up the road and get a 500 quid reel. What makes the difference? I guess you're looking at the build quality. Yes, you've got £100 reels that have lasted you ages. Not forgetting when you bought those £100 reels, they probably weren't that far away from being top of the range. Top of the range back then was probably about 200 soft, so you're halfway there. So yeah, I mean it's a funny one. The build quality for a £100 reel back then was a lot better than the build quality of a £100 reel now. I've tried some of the latest ones, mate. They're shocking. You know, I can't think what mine cost. I think the last time I see my ones on sale, I got Shimano Aero, fuck knows what, XT 10,000s. They're bloody brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But I think they were, last time I saw them on the market, were just under 400 quid or something each. I got a set of 4 of those. I wouldn't change them for the world, to be honest with you, mate. If not the best reel out there, certainly damn close to it. Trouble is, I think my bias against Daiwa is literally because I've only bought a very, very few Daiwa reels. Daiwa, and every one of them has been for a set purpose, and that's to leave in a bush for my guesting purposes. And I've bought shit basically. So I'm biased against Daiwa because I bought shit and got shit. Makes sense, obviously. Whereas with Shimano reels, I've always bought sort of higher end gear and got higher end gear. Why am I surprised? I do like to wind up Daiwa fans though. The only time I've really had an issue with Daiwa high quality gear was the SS3000s. The amount of people I know that used them, Ian included, for many years. Ian used them, God knows how. He used to reel in. I could hear him reeling in from the next round. Oh, God, it was awful. But they were like 25-year-old reels or something, you know. Why would I be surprised at 25-year-old reels behaving like that? But anyways, yeah, so go back to your question, why does it cost so much more? It's simply the build quality. The materials they use now are more expensive than the materials they used back then. Not because the materials are that much better, but they're a little bit better. But the cost of living's gone up, so everything costs more. Yeah, you can sit there and say a reel at 500 quid should be sort of unbreakable in a lifetime. I go back to the Cardinal 55s and think they were pretty much unbreakable in a lifetime, and they were only, I can't even remember how much they bloody were, 50 quid, you know, 50, 60, 70 quid, somewhere around there. No, brilliant reels, smooth as you like on the clutch, lovely line lay. They were just great little reels, felt perfect. Obviously they got outdated because they were too small. Would they still be going today? I know people are still using them today. Alright, the spools have a habit, if you like, of either collapsing or exploding. I should think they're only plastic spools, to be honest. I'm not surprised. So you could ask the same question, my old Cardinal 55, blah 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 blah, lasts forever and they're still going, blah blah blah. How can reels cost twice as much as that when they're perfect? Yeah, your ones do, and you're happy with them. My ones cost, what, 3 times, nearly 4 times as much as yours, and I'm happy with them. I dare say someone that spent twice as much as me on it, you know, spending 600 quid or so on a set of reel, on a reel, single reel, is also happy with it. They're just happy with it. So, you know, it's difficult to quantify, if I'm honest, mate. It's the cost of the reels has obviously gone up. The cost of the parts has gone up, and I think that's about as far as you can go with it. There's there's no why they cost 10 times more. It's just build quality is a little bit better. I think the engineering's a fraction better, and at the end of the day, the materials cost more. That's about as far as I can go with it. I bought some lashy reels during the year for leaving in bushes. I haven't used them yet. They feel like lovely reels. I think they were dirt cheap. Maybe Ian might be able to post up underneath this and let us know how much they cost, because I can't remember. But yeah, they feel like nice reels. And they were well under 100, I know that. I think they might have been like 50-60 quid each. Like I say, I bought rubbish to be left in a bush so that when someone steals them I don't go, someone stole my fishing gear. No, they just stole some shitty Nash gear, mate, that's it. End of worry. So yeah, where'd you go, you know. They feel like good reels. I'll tell you in a few years, once I've done a bit more guesting with them. So far I haven't even bought them out of the box. They're just sitting in the cupboard over there in a box, all lined up, all spooled up, ready to go. Just more money wasted, isn't it? You know what the tackle industry's like. Okay, mate, thank you very much for that question, Chris. Right, here's a question from Mike Happyholi. Do you think carp can see our end tackle, leads, leaders, hook links, etc., and shy away from it, or are we giving them too much credit? Put simply, Mike, yes, I think we are giving them way too much credit. I don't think they can see the end tackle. I think they home in from a few feet away onto a bait that they can see, and they just line up to that bait, go, snuffle it, gone, next. I don't think they can see our end tackle at all. The only thing they might do is feel it. They're quite sensitive. If you watch a carp touch fins onto anything that's a bit weird, they'll spook straight away. I've never seen any carp spook away from something they see. You could argue that when they see our line they sometimes spook, but yes, that's because the line will be heading straight at their eye here, straight in their eye line, and they'll spook from it because it's something they're not expecting to be seeing going straight across a lake. But 9 out of 10 times when they spook off the lines because they've touched it with their dorsal or with their pecs, and yes, they do spook off a bit then. So no, I don't think they can see our rigs at all. Leaders possibly, but at the same time they see 100 things in the lake that look so similar to that they ain't going to worry about it. Hook links, no. Leads, no. It's just too similar to everything else they see as a lead, stone, lead. Makes no difference to them. Hook links, no. Bait, yes. They see the food there. But that's about it. I think they sense food more than they see it though. I think they taste it and home in on it, to be honest. Hence why we make lovely tasting super duper baits. But yeah, we are definitely giving them too much credit. That's not only just in the fact that we try to hide our tackle, it's also in the fact that we make rigs that are basically there to fool, if you like, something with the intelligence of a human being. They haven't got that intelligence, and you'll basically, all you can do by giving them a techie rig is teach them. Yeah, you're educating them. So I don't see the point in doing that. I hope that helps, Mike. Right, let's get on to the next one. We'll do Gaz Reidy next. This is sort of merged in a bit with Sam Kiddle, but Gaz Reidy says, hope you're keeping safe, Martin. just thought I'd send you over a question on something I believe in and think we've spoken about it in the past, which we have. Plus it might be something interest for you to cover for others out there regarding moon phases and what people believe. Would you say water volume, i.e. acreage and depth of lake, makes a difference in regards to moon phases? Me personally, I think it does, on the basis the moon has a bigger effect on large quantities of water. Absolutely, 100%. I.e. the ocean, it makes a tide, whereas a puddle it does nothing. With this in mind, would you say some people look into things way too much, like moon phases, on small lakes? Yeah, I do, but at the same time I think there's a lot of different stuff going on under the water that is also affected by moons. I'll go into it after I've read Sam's part. Strange first question, Sam. Do you believe in moon phases? Yes, Sam, they happen. There is such a thing as a moon phase. Hope that helps you, mate. Sorry, Sam, I'm taking a piss. Shouldn't be doing that. Do you believe in moon phases? Do you believe full moons bring high pressure, new moons low pressure? It then goes on to say, I fish a place where two lakes side by side. One is deep, one shallow. The shallower fish is better on full moons and high pressure. The deep one fishes better on new moons and low pressure. Is this just coincidence? Thanks for this bit. You have fished many more lakes and many more years than me. What are your thoughts? Thanks, mate. I'm only a youngster, you know. I'm 23. God, I don't know what you think this is. Might have to stop talking to Sam on the internet. He sounds like a right old sort, he does. Picking on me about my age. He's ageist. Just wrong, mate. Right, right. Let's get all these things merged together. Yes, Gaz, I do feel definitely that larger and deeper waters are more affected by moon phases. Sam, yes, I do believe there is a trend for new moons to bring low pressure and high old, for crying out loud, new moons to bring high pressure, full moons to bring low pressure. Yes, it will affect your lake differently, your two lakes differently, simply because of the, I personally think the pressure is the affecting factor rather than the moons in regards to how well they fish under those circumstances. But there is definitely a correlation between the two, i.e. moons and high pressures and low pressures, etc. I've seen it too many times when you're looking at a full moon. There's no stars in the cloud. There's no clouds in the sky. It's a massively high pressure situation, and yeah, the fish definitely behave differently. Now, going back to Gaz, where he says, do people look into it too much on a small lake? No, I don't think they do. My fishing's been over a lot of varied lakes over the years, from massive great things to little puddles, and moon phases has been a big part of my fishing through 40 years. I think it's probably since about 83, I'm guessing, when I started really paying attention to moon phases. I can't remember who it was. I think I might have sat down with, it was either Paul Klinkenborg or who the bloody hell was it? Lee Barringer, I think. It was either Paul Klinkenborg or Lee Barringer, because I remember having a conversation with them separately about moon phases really early on. I know it wasn't Kerry Barringer because I just know it wasn't. But yeah, I remember having a chat about them, and they said, you know, it's something to pay attention to. So I did over the next sort of 37 years or so. And yeah, it was a big eye opener really over the years, and I've fished big and small waters and paid a lot of attention to it. I think in the last, probably the last 10, 15, 15 years, I think, I've paid a lot more attention to air pressure as well. But to say that people pay too much attention on a small lake with the moon phases, no, I don't think that's the case. One of the things that I noted relatively earlier on is the amount of different. The carp may not act differently. What happens though is the food sources for the carp act differently. For instance, there's many cases of many water creatures that all type. For instance, there's a thing, I can't remember what they're called now, but in the Indian Ocean there's a whole coral reef of creature. I can't remember what the bloody hell they're called, but literally on the very same night they'll all release all of their creature spunk. I don't know what you're going to call it, and that's eggs as well as like the sperm side, the male and female side of things. So they'll all release it on a full moon every single year, and it's something like the 5th full moon of the year. Yeah, how can you not say that other life forms have has that something like that happening within them through moon phases? There's so many cases of different things happening on certain moon phases of the year. I know that for instance mussels, they do the same thing even in fresh water at certain times of year. I cannot remember what it is. It's usually about I think it's late May. Freshwater mussels do it, and that's again tied banging. I think they do it to a new moon though, but it's banging with the new moon. You know, it's not a bit here and a bit there. It's bang on it. Done. That's their year's procreation, so to speak. So the fact that they do that, I believe bloodworm or another creature that does similar. They'll only sort of their life cycle revolves around the moon phases. They come up at certain times, down at certain times. Air pressure is involved, water temperature's involved, but they also up and down just due to moon phases. So the natural order of things that we as carp anglers sort of try to tie together. If you look at moon phases and carp feeding a lot, you sit there and go, ooh, yeah. Right, now I've caught, according to my records and stuff that I've done over the years, I've caught 2/3 of my carp at new moon phase. That's three days before the moon phase, before the new moon phase, 3 days after the new moon phase. So that 7-day period, yeah, I've had 2/3 of my carp. Yeah, that's just a figure that blew me away when I first realised it. The other third of my carp have come spread between it dies down after that and then picks up again at the full moon phase, and then dips down again and then picks up again. So as you're going around the circle of the moon, so to speak, the moon cycle, it starts high at new moon, yeah, completely black moon. It's very high. It drops right down to virtually nothing, then picks up again a little bit, back down again, and then high up again. Now, all of the weird, not all, the vast majority of the weird fish that I've ever caught, i.e. fish that very rarely come out at all, have been around the full moon phase. So again, that's another figure that you sit there and you think, well, why is that happening? You know, the bigger commons, the uncaught mirrors, things like that. That's always around a new moon, around a full moon. So why would that be happening if it wasn't affected by the moons? And as I say, I get this massive drop off after a new moon. Why would that be? You know, by 4 days, 5 days past a new moon, it's almost like fishing a lake without fish in it, whereas a week ago there was plenty of chance of catching a fish. You know, so it's a very weird situation really, the moon phases, but it's definitely affected me fishing over the years, and something I pay very close attention to as I go on. The fact that carp are affected by it doesn't really affect my fishing in as much as if I could go fishing tomorrow, I would look at the moon and say, oh yeah, but it's not a new moon or not a full moon, so there's no point. Oh no, you fit in your fishing when you can fit it in. Just on the good days it happens to be a full moon. I don't just go fishing when there's a new moon, because that would be very accurate fucking statistics anyways. But yeah, it definitely affects what you catch and how they feed, definitely. The acreage of the water is definitely affected more so when it is a big water, but even small lakes are affected quite a lot. I'm going into my last question with Chris J Hinde, asking about how I tackle a small weedy water, and the results I got on there were just astronomical, based solely on when I fished. I only fished there a month and a half, something like that, and the catch just went up, right down, and then a couple of weird ones, and that was it. That's the whole time of fishing that I did, but it was only over a little period, just over a month, and me and Ian just took a place apart that apparently has no carp in it, so we took it apart and went and cleared off and left them to it. Alright, nods, bye. So yeah, I mean, it's a funny old thing, the old moon phases, but it definitely, absolutely, 100% does affect the fish's feeding situation and how they behave. So I hope that helps. That's Gaz Reidy and Sam Kiddle. I hope that helps, guys. Just pop down some more questions if you've got any. I like your ones, they're good fun. Right, let's get on to the last question, and then I think that's it for the night. Right, last one of the night, again from Chris J Hinde. Steve, you need to talk to this guy, see if you can get a double booking with Jim Shelley, mate. Get it sorted, yeah? You know it, this makes sense, mate. Right, yeah, Chris J Hinde. How would you tackle a weedy water on arrival to a lake for the first time? I've fished in quite a lot of weed in the past, but it's when I'm least confident in. It's what I'm least confident in. I'm always worrying about presentation. When fishing weedy lakes, do you only have holes or small gullies in weed? How would you approach this from a line lay point of view? For instance, is it possible to lay your line over the top of the weed to make sure your hook bait is on a clear spot? How would this affect bite detection? Right, I hear what you're saying, Chris. I've fished quite a few weedy waters in the past, from Long Life, Cons, Raspberry 2, Broadwater. Pretty much every lake I've fished really's got quite a lot of weed in it. I think the only one that hasn't had a great deal of weed was a reservoir we fished, me and Ian fished a while back. Other than that, yeah, weed central really. I think the biggest thing with weed isn't so much the weed, it's getting your head around the weed. Weed isn't a problem. I love weed. Weed is great. It makes a hard water easy. It makes finding fish a lot easier because you know where they're going to be. They're going to be in the weed. If you've got 50% weed, 50% clear, they're going to be in the weed most of the time, mate. In a lake, even in a lake that's fully weeded up, it gives you better options, I feel. It gives you clearer lines as to where the fish are going to be moving, how the fish are going to be moving, and where the fish are going to be moving. For instance, I fished a lake called Buers Lake several years back, me and Ian. Ian sent me a picture of it. He'd just joined, it was a local lake to him. It's a lovely little lake. Apparently it's got quite a bit of history. I'd never heard of it before, if I'm honest. It got a bit of a history. Apparently the Nash boys spent a bit of time on there and blah 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 blah. But yeah, we joined. There was two reasons we joined. First thing was I joined because of the picture Ian sent me. Ian sent me a picture of this lake, and it was just absolutely to die for. It was just like a field of green. It was that weedy, lily pads, solid weed. It was gorgeous. It really was. I'll put a picture up now. And the second reason we joined was because the club secretary and the bailiff and anyone we spoke to told us there aren't any carp in there because it had all been ottered. That just, to us, that sounded more like a challenge than a point of fact. I think we had 22 carp out of there in, I think we'd done a little over a month, maybe a month and a half, and we had 22 carp out between us. I wouldn't say that's bad for a lake that hasn't got any carp in it, to be honest. It's one of the reasons I've got strange views on predation, to be honest with you. But how would I tackle a weedy water? There's several different types of weedy water, if I'm honest. I've fished huge, great lakes with weed that effectively goes out 90 yards and stops due to the angle of the decline of the lake bed, if you like. Once it gets past 12-13 foot, you won't get weed growing in it. The problem with that sort of place is if you're fishing out of the weed, you'll know you're in deeper water than 13 foot. The only clear spots you're going to find are on top of gravel bars and things like that, which we tended to steer clear of because that's cray heaven. The crays love it in gravel patches, gravel bars. You can drift over in a boat and see all the holes in the side of the gravel bars, so we try to steer clear of those as much as possible anyways. So a lot of our fishing was done in semi-clear spots. What you'll find is areas that fish have fed in before, you'll find recently before, you'll find you've got a layer of weed like that, and then it just sort of drops down, and you've got a layer that's much lower, and then it comes back up again. That's either a patrol route if it's a long line, or if it's sort of just a hole that's basically been fed on before. You can be pretty sure that a few weeks previous that was clear. So on waters that have got that sort of weed where it's literally 90 yards out, after that you know you're going to be in 13 foot of water. In the middle of summer with high air pressure and things like that, you're not going to find the fish in that sort of environment anyway. So you want to be fishing shallower water. So you're looking for these depressions in the weed, really. That's your ideal starting points. and patrol routes. Patrol routes can be spotted because they're clear lines in the weed. Watch out you're not following a swan's patrol route though. They will follow the same route and you'll have a clear line in the surface weed, but it'll only go down a foot or so. Whereas a carp's patrol route will be going much deeper than that. The difficulty with a carp's patrol route is often they're completely invisible from the surface of the lake. How you get around that is lots and lots of hard work, plumbing, and if you imagine, a lot of the time you'll find what you've probably felt it before, what you think is a clear spot in the weed, but when you go to let your float up, it only comes up 1.5 yards and hits the surface. It sort of just hits the weed, yeah, and doesn't come up anymore. Yeah, that's a clear spot under the weed, but you just don't know it's there because the weed's there and you can't actually pinpoint it with your lead or your marker float. But those are great little spots to start in, to be honest. I don't like fishing what I would call clear spots in weed. They're a pain in the arse. Presentation's awkward in them. Presentation's awkward in them. It's just a pain. Whereas if you've got weed pretty much top to bottom, with either a lessening of the weed, you can hide your rig and everything in that, and I do mean in it, I don't mean on it. Or if you have got a channel, a clear way of channel, what you know is a patrol route, then as long as your rig's in there, you don't worry about your line or your lead, because it's only sort of 1.5 foot, 2 foot wide maximum. You're not going to get a line going sort of right across it. The only thing you're going to get is something that's almost vertical, very similar to the weed. So yeah, it's an awkward way to fish if you're fishing on a clear spot, simply because 9 out of 10 times your lead is going to be near the far side, simply due to how you cast into it. Sorry about the background noise. Hopefully that dies down in the next couple of minutes. We got an annoyance staying with us at the moment. Family. So yeah, the trouble is when you're fishing a clear spot, your tendency is to actually, you may well think that you'll cast into the near side of the spot, but the way you tend to land a lead is you're actually going to be fishing near the far side of the open spot. What that means is as your line's coming across the surface of the weed, it then hits this clear spot and goes 45 degrees across it to where your lead is. The only way you can really fish a clear spot is to make sure that you're fishing on the near side of it, and that means tweaking your line back until you feel resistance, which is either your lead hitting the weed on the near side, or you know you've dragged it far enough by viewing it, if you like. Other than that, a clear spot I would tend to steer clear of, if I'm honest. If it's a gravel hump, for instance, though, yeah, you can get your line to come off the weed straight onto it. Like if it's a plateau or whatever, you can get it to come straight onto it, so you're actually not creating that big line going straight across the eyesight of a carp. So if it's a plateau, you've got a much better chance of presenting well than if it's a deep hole in the weed. So, but as I say, the biggest problem you've got is getting your head around the fact that weed is not an issue. At the end of the day, when we turned up at Bures, what we looked at was basically a golf course with a very, very wet golf course. It was extremely weedy, water lilies, Canadian pondweed, you name it was in there. There was silkweed in there was pomogen, there was all sorts of stuff. The biggest problem we had wasn't really presentation, because we've been doing it well enough and long enough to know that in effect, if I cast out and it's in a solid bag, I know it's fishing. If it's fishing, it's catchable. It can catch something. So our mindset was actually to change the environment to suit us, or mine was anyways. I think Ian fished a bar that was running along the centre of the lake, and he fished that quite successfully, whereas my approach was slightly different. What I did, I raked a swim to about 25 yards out, 20-25 yards out, and basically had a little bit of weed between me and my fishing spot, if you like, and then weeded heavily around there to clear it almost entirely of weed. I then baited up with hemp on top of that to make sure it got clear. So bream, tench, carp, everything was going in there and having a munch and clearing out the last of the weed. I did that a couple of days before I actually went fishing in there, and pretty much hit it off on the first night and second night that I was there. So yeah, it's a funny one, because if you can imagine thinking your way around the problem of weed and actually think of it as making your life easier, yeah. If you want a clear spot, make one. It's the easiest way. Make a clear spot. You know that it's clear. You know that you can fish it accurately and simply. What easier could you ask for? You've made the spot. Yeah? Fish will feed there because of it's upturned foodstuffs that you're creating. You're digging out the home, if you like, of water snails and bugs and everything that carp love to eat. You're clearing the actual home of that out, and all of a sudden they're homeless. Yeah, it's a free meal for anything that comes along. Carp will love that. So that's one way around it. Another thing, if you are determined to fish or not change the environment you're fishing in, work with the environment you're fishing in. For instance, I've just said I don't like fishing holes in weed, like, hole and up like that, yeah, because your line goes across it. Well, don't do that. Bait up the hole, fish out of the hole, solid bag, straight in, big lead in there, make sure it hits the bottom, leave it. Yeah, your line's coming straight in. Fish a relatively slackish line, just the tension of your bobbin holding it down. Yeah, that's all the tension you need on it. Your bites will be spectacular, believe me. And the fish aren't going to go anywhere. They're going to weed themselves up and come in like sacks of shit. But that's what you expect on a weedy lake. If you fished it long enough, you know that. As soon as fish get weed on over the cover in their eyes, that's it. They're done. They just sit there. You bring the weed bed in, that's it, done. You're not going to lose any more fish from fishing it like that than you are fishing holes, I can tell you that much. So yeah, just pay attention to little things, really. Just understand that the weed isn't the problem. It's just your mindset that's the problem. Fish feed in weed, so why not fish in the weed? Yes, a clear spot's so much easier for you to fish, but the carp are cautious there. Bait up the clear spot, but just cast your rods just outside of it, a yard, 2 yards outside of that. Yeah, so like I say, solid bag, bosh it straight in there, let it hit the bottom. The carp will find it, believe me, and they'll take that every time over the stuff that's sitting in the clear. Right. Whew. Trying to cover everything in this last little bit. Obviously this has been a 20-minute question on its own. How will it affect your bite indication? To be honest with you, it won't really. I fish quite light indication, quite light bobbins, so pretty much they just slam up to the rod tip every fucking time. There's not going to be a change in that. The bites are going to be as aggressive as they are on clear areas, so I wouldn't worry about that. It's not going to really affect your line lay, simply because if you're fishing it sensibly, you can have a line straight across the top and just dropping down where your hook is. one thing I will say is don't really over tighten, because all you're going to be doing is trying to pick the lead up and dangling it off the edge of the weed. So you don't really want to fish it like that unless you want to fish it mid-water. And also, if you've got a patrol route that's above the weed, this is a handy one. Fish an ultralight chod rig with a flying back lead and push the flying back lead just onto your knot at the back of your leader. And what you do, you cast out and let it sink on an ultra tight line, sort of thing, or as tight a line as you can, even to the point of possibly pulling it back as it hits the water. Just pull it back a fraction. Yeah, what that'll do is just pull it up in the water, and both the leads will sit there like that, and then they'll slowly sink down, and the line that's in between will sit on top of the water. Now if you've got a chod sitting here, that's sitting right on top of that weed, yeah, and there's nothing impeding it at all. So that's an ideal way to fish a really weedy bit of water if the fish are up near the surface. Other than that, mate, as I say, your biggest problem is a mental issue. It's not, weed isn't a problem. Weed's a great thing in fishing. It gives you a target every time. You know the fish will feed there. If you imagine a barren lake that's got no weed in it, yeah, think to yourself honestly, how the hell do you find a feeding spot in that? Yeah, you've got to be trying to track down things like bloodworm patches and things like that. I've found quite a lot of bloodworm patches, but it's hard work. I'd much rather just find if I've got a weedy lake, I know they'll feed everywhere in that weedy lake. It's just a case of me deciding where I want to fish. It's very rarely a case of the fish deciding where they want to feed, because I know they'll feed everywhere. It's just present the bait, get it in there, and I'll have it. Yeah. So I hope that helps, Chris. Any more questions, don't forget to put them up. That's the end of number 6 now. So if you've got any more questions, ask away. Like I say, PM me if you've got what you term to be a silly question. I've got no issues with answering them, and I'll keep it to myself as to your name. For instance, what's the best rig in the world? I don't care answering that, there isn't one. Yeah. So ask away, PM me if you need to, and I'll answer any questions you've got, guys. That's the end of number 6. Don't forget, stay safe, stay indoors, or go out, go fishing. I don't care, not my problem. Be grown up. Good night. Oh, by the way, hopefully Boris said you can go fishing anyway, so don't worry about me or my views. Just go. See you later. Have a good night. Bye.